All right, everybody, we are rested and relaxed and ready to roll once again after a week off. We are back, Locked On Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and a lot has happened in the week we were gone. The Avs signed some players, they kept some players around, a couple players left. There's one that's glaring that hasn't signed anywhere yet, which we will talk to, and they promoted someone to a new spot. They removed the assistant general manager tag, named him general manager. Joe Sakic gets promoted to hockey operations. So much going on. And because we haven't had a chance to talk to it, that's what today is going to be about. Let's get to it.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So anything good happened last week? Yeah, I think a lot did go right. A couple people moved away to maybe greener pastures. We don't know. We shall see. But it was free agency week, and we took the week off. So, but we could still talk about it because since then, not a lot has happened. They had a couple 48-hour period where deals are getting made, which you expected. And the Avalanche were a part of that. They were in the thick of a lot of it. But there's still the one glaring omission in Mr. Nazem Kadri that is still out there. We got a lot to talk about, but first things first, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Follow the show on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on the YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. All right, Mr. Sullivan. I don't know about you, but I'm very rested, relaxed, ready to roll again. Get back, even though it's the off season. There's always Avalanche stuff to talk about, and there was a lot last week.
Yeah, I was so ready. I messaged you like early today. I was like, dude, I cannot wait to get back in the saddle. And yeah, it was a busy. Like honestly, when you look at everything on the whole, everybody was kind of brought back. You didn't go out there and sign like the Johnny Hockey to Columbus. Like you're not shaking the world with moves. You're getting the band back together basically. So
and I always wonder about that. Like I always wonder, like, yeah, you're staying the course. You're bringing back as many guys as possible. The Avs didn't bring in anybody like new that really shakes the team and blows up the team. And you have a different look of the Avalanche for next year. With the exception of Nazem Kadri, who we will definitely talk about, and we'll talk about the big signings that they have. And they've said it. They want to bring back as many guys on this team. They want to stay the course with this team. I always wonder about that. Like, yeah, you are going to be as good as you were last year, but the thing is, other teams, are they getting better than you? That's the problem, because other teams are out there. They're signing guys left and right. They're trying to get better. Have they gotten better than the Avalanche, who are staying the course?
Well, they're committing to certain aspects of this team that did work. Like you could see with Burakovsky not being a part of the team next year, Darcy Kemper not being the part of the team next year.
We'll talk about them too.
There are certain pieces that they're not sticking to, but they believe in Lehkonen. They believe in Manson. They believe in Nichushkin. So, yes, this is part of the success that got you here. And Joe Sakic makes his moves at the trade deadline. So, he's got the pieces that he fell in love with and was shaving off some of the other stuff. And we'll see how this team looks come trade deadline.
Yes, so that they probably will be active again in some capacity at the trade deadline. That's down the road. Here and now, the first thing that happened, I was driving to our vacation destination, and my wife tells them driving, and she's riding shotgun, and she tells me the Avalanche, and she's reading it slowly. I'm like, pick it up. I need to know this stuff. I'm driving. And she's like, they promote Joe Sakic to president of hockey operations, and then I just kind of filled in the blank, and I'm like, and they made Chris MacFarland GM, and she's like, yeah. This is something that some people were thinking was going to happen after the Avalanche, won the cup, or because the Avalanche won the cup. And I think if they didn't, who knows? Maybe they stick around in those roles for another year. But I think that it happened. There's nothing left for Joe Sakic to do as a general manager.
Yeah.
He's proven everything. So they bump him up to president of hockey operations, and Chris MacFarland, who has been there for all of this. And I had some people messaging me saying, like, is this going to really change things? I was like, no, because all of the moves that Joe Sakic has made, he gets the headlines because his name is Joe Sakic. Chris MacFarland has been there for all of those deals.
Yeah.
And it won't change. Now Chris MacFarland has, they remove the assistant from him, or the title from him. And just because Joe Sakic is propped up to a promotion doesn't mean he's not going to be involved. Like, they will, I don't see anything really changing in how they do business. They just have different titles right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a title change because Sakic came in here in 2014. MacFarland came in 2015. They kind of have been working in tandem this whole time, and they're going to continue to through the duration of their careers here. And it's not like MacFarland is a stranger to this. While Sakic was winning cups as a player, MacFarland was hockey ops for Columbus for over a decade. So he's been in this, he understands this, and you could see this with the moves. Like, just after the announcement was made, that's when all the signings started happening. And then, I mean, it was just par for the course. This is what Sakic and MacFarland do. You just never hear about MacFarland because Sakic's such like that big, sexy name that you can put on everything, and it makes it look like he's a hockey genius, but they work in tandem.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's been, learning the job for years now. So he knows what to do. And the Avs deliberately did not want to let him go. There were other, you heard the Ducks, his name attached to the Ducks. You heard his name attached to the Sharks. There were other teams that wanted to meet with him.
Florida wanted him at one point.
Did they? It's possible. I think almost every general manager spot that was open was wanting to talk with him, and the Avs said no because they had a plan, and this was the plan. And I don't think he wanted to go anywhere. I think he's in a good spot, and nothing is going to. You're not going to notice any real difference. Just the one who's going to be, behind the mic now talking about these deals is going to be Chris MacFarland instead of Joe Sakic, who has a nice corner office now, probably, and deservedly so. So that's that. And, we will discuss the deals that were made, but I think we have to talk about the one that has not been made yet. And that's obviously Nazem Kadri. And when he was not signed on day one, I was thinking, okay, I think the Avs chances, the percentage of them getting back went up a little bit more. And then after day two, I feel like, okay, they went up even more. And then day three, I think like now we're at a spot where we are fully in the mix of getting him back, because he would have signed, he would have went somewhere by now if the Avalanche were out of it. If the Avalanche kind of took this the same way as they did with Darcy Kemper, as if to say, like, we can't match what you want, and we're just going to go separate ways, you would have heard that by now. But you've heard the opposite. You've heard the Avs are in the mix for this. You're thinking a deal has to get made. There's no other way around it. They have to do something, get creative in who they're going to trade. The two names you're hearing are JT Compher and Sam Girard. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is kind of like Gabe Landeskog 2.0 for me. I was thinking there was a period of time where I'm like, thanks for everything you've done for the Avs. I guess I'll root from you from afar. And now it's kind of turning the corner. I think it's going to happen. I think there's something in the mix that the Avalanche and Nazem Kadri are going to make this happen. We'll have to lose a guy to get him, but I just feel like he's coming back now. I do now.
Yeah, I'm completely right there with you. I've gone from making my Nazem Kadri tribute video that I was going to post on YouTube, like, thanks for all the memories. I've had to almost like delete the project because it feels like he's coming back. Like, watching all the moves on trade deadline, I joined the Locked On NHL live show, and we were talking about it, and you're just sitting there watching for that first domino, the Johnny Hockey move. You're waiting and you're waiting, you're waiting. You see all these other moves happen. And then when finally he gets signed to Columbus, you're like, okay, now here comes Nas, because he's definitely the second biggest name out there. You're waiting for that one. And then the more it doesn't happen, the more you're like, wait a minute, why is New Jersey not, like, they didn't get Johnny Hockey? Why aren't they signing him? Why isn't Calgary signing him? Like, all of these other teams that lost out on the Johnny Gaudreau signing him, that's exactly what you should be doing,
Mhm.
is rolling up the Brinks truck and paying him. Why is he not going there?
Mhm.
And it's, the longer this goes, at time of recording, still no deal. So something is going on, and it feels like pieces are being moved. And
Yeah.
who knows? Avs Twitter might be finally happy. It might be Sammy G. It might be JT Compher. But like, you feel like pieces are being moved, and Nas isn't packing up yet because he's looking to stay in Colorado. And I
Yeah.
feel like Colorado wants him to stay.
Oh, 100% they do. Absolutely. I think the interesting thing to see will be term, no matter where he goes, what the term will be. And I think, again, this, how I'm saying this is Landeskog 2.0. I think he had a high number, and I don't think people were willing to go that high on him. So I think that's come down to Gabe Landeskog range. You know, he's making what, was he 4.5 or 4.9 or something like that? You know, he's going to make more than that. And I think he's going to be in that 7 range. I would be comfortable with that. I think the Avalanche would be comfortable with. I can't see him going over 8. And I can almost guarantee you there were teams that were offering him that. You heard that Calgary was in panic mode after Johnny Gaudreau left, and I get that. But people were saying, like, they were throwing out the deal that they had for him and just passing it on to Kadri. I don't see that. I think they went up to like around 10.
Yeah.
For Gaudreau, and I don't think they're going to go that far. But I do think that Calgary was in a little bit of panic mode. Like, we need to replace him as fast as possible. Kadri's the best guy left on the market. Let's throw him a lot of money. And I think you know, they are probably the 3 teams you're hearing are Calgary, Colorado, and the Islanders.
Yeah,
who have done nothing this free agency period. Nothing. So, and Kadri has said he is only going to a contender. So you are narrowing down your search to half the teams, probably less than half the teams in the league are, you know, Calgary is definitely one of the teams. Obviously the Avalanche are. The Islanders, you don't know what you're getting with the Islanders next year. They underachieved, but they have talent there. But it's kind of like a little bit iffy. And I don't know if he would go there. You know, Calgary threw a lot of money at him.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it hasn't been accepted yet just makes me believe that the Avalanche are working something behind the scenes that obviously he knows about. They're not going to leave him out in the lurch. And I think something is going to happen. Now, what is that going to be? It's got to be a trade. And like I said, you're hearing Girard, you're hearing Compher. JT Compher only has 1 year left on his deal. Sam Girard has 4 or 5. I don't have Cap Friendly up in front of me, but I think he has like 5 years left on his deal. I know a lot of people have just, for some reason, completely given up on Sam Girard. I absolutely have not, because, you know, is the man not allowed to have a down year when we don't know exactly what was going on with him? We know that there was injuries happening. People have jumped ship on him quicker than any player I've seen in Avalanche history. And I don't get it. He's a very good player. He's a very good defenseman. And I will go back to when people were giving him the Norris halfway through 2 seasons ago now. He has the potential, and he's beyond potential. We know we've seen the good from him. We've seen the bad too. And as soon as we've seen the bad, we want to get rid of him. I am not there with him. If you're holding my feet to the fire, who would you rather give up between JT Compher and Sam Girard? I'm giving up JT Compher. I feel like I can replace him better than I can with Sam Girard. That's how I feel. I'm sure people are going to be disagreeing with me, and that is completely fine. But I'm not doing that. I'm not getting rid of Sam Girard. And I also want to say, it wouldn't surprise me if the Avalanche do give up Sam Girard to sign Kadri. Either of these things could happen. What I want to see is Girard stay and replace JT Compher with either in a free agent signing, or you bring up one of your minor league guys.
I was perfectly fine asking EJ to retire to give us $6 million back so we could sign Nas.
Mm-hmm.
EJ said, no, I'm going to play again. So my
Just fine.
sights are now on Samuel Girard, who's now sitting on $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be like, hey, this is business, baby. Like,
Sure.
we could, I mean, you have a camp. Maybe we get a good, healthy Bo Byram. The defense, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And we've been signing all of these lesser known depth pieces to see how they work out in training camp. That'll be fine. Hey, if I had to trade, I know you would be okay with JT for the sole purpose of signing Nas. It's been great, Sammy, but that $5 million looks a lot better than anything you gave us last year.
I mean, it might force their hand. What do they have? 3.9, and Conference making 3.5. So no, that would be enough to sign him.
Yeah,
that's 7.6. No, 7.4. I'm sorry, right? Yeah. If you got rid of JT Compher, obviously you have a lot, $1.5 million more to work with if you get rid of Sam Girard. But the money aspect, obviously Sam Girard, because you have a little bit more leniency in the money from the player. And I like JT Compher. This is not, like you said, this is business.
Yeah.
I feel like I can find somebody to replace what Compher can do long term. Then I have the confidence in Sam Girard that he can bounce back next year. I just
now if JT Compher was making $5 million a year, I would say JT Compher.
Mm-hmm.
Let's trade him. But it's the money is what
you're in the money side of it, right?
Yeah,
and I get that.
It's freeing out that cap, which is already kind of tight for going into a season. I don't like sitting at where we're at right now, especially with unproven Georgiev and Frankie back there in net. I would like to have a little bit more in case of emergency, break the glass, and we'll have something to access. But if we need the money, I mean, that $5 million is just staring you at the face.
Yeah, and you've got 21 of your roster size, 21 of 23. So you need to sign 2 more guys to have a filled out roster. If you get rid of Compher, that brings you to 7.4. And if you're signing Kadri for 7, you can't sign a guy for $400,000.
No,
so
you can sign me. You hear that, Chris MacFarland?
Yeah. I don't know. It might have to be Girard. It might have to be. So it'll be interesting to see where this thing goes. All right. Let's hear from Bet Online, and then we'll talk about the deals that the Avalanche did make. And thinks there's some happy Avalanche fans out there after these 3 were made. But first, betonline.net, your #1 source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, including live betting and esports. It remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news for this season. BetOnline.net is fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Did you watch that Open today?
I watched the final round.
Unbelievable. I cannot watch the first 3 rounds. I don't care. And then you watch that final round, and it's just, that's
made me want a mullet.
Great. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. So as we wait for the Avs to do whatever they're going to do with Nazem Kadri and the players that we were talking about, they did do some things with 3 key players for their Stanley Cup championship roster. You have Arturi Lehkonen, you have Josh Manson, and you have Val Nichushkin, all getting deals. We'll start with Big Val. I think the big shocker for him was the term. We were talking 4 to 5 years, and he gets a max 8-year deal, and you have to feel good for Val Nichushkin going from, just getting thrown off to the side of the road for anybody to pick. And the Avs said, we'll take a flyer on you. And he has just methodically gone through the ranks of this roster up to their top line. And they have all the faith in the world in him. And they gave him an 8-year deal. I think it was for $49 million. Let's just round it up another million to 50 because it sounds a little bit better. No. But 8 years, $49 million for a guy nobody wanted except the Colorado Avalanche. This is a redemption story that you love to see in sports, and it's great that he's, on our team.
Yeah, you knew this deal was like number one that the Avs wanted to get done. You wanted to bring him back. I was absolutely surprised that it was 8 years. I was shocked. When I saw that, I had to really look at it like 2 or 3 times. Everybody knows, like, looking at that deal, towards the end of this deal, he's going to be the new EJ. That once money gets tight, you're going to be like, well, it's time for Val to hang it up. And because after 8 years, he's already had the broken foot and the issues going through the playoffs. If we could keep him healthy all 8 years, he's going to be worth every penny of that 49 mil. But that's a huge commitment that both sides have to keep up. Like, can the Avs keep him around for the full 8, and can he keep up for the full 8? I would love to see it. If he can give us 100, maybe even 80% of Val, it's going to be a good 8 years in Colorado.
Well, the Avs clearly have learned from the Eric Johnson contract, because for the duration of that contract, he had a full no movement clause. And the same thing with Nichushkin. The first 3 years are no movement clauses. Now let me look on Eric Johnson's to see if it was. No, he does have a modified. So there are teams that he can say he doesn't want to go to. And the same is with Nichushkin. The first 3 years are a full no move. They're not going to trade him for the first 3 years. I'm fine with that. So for the last 5, if things aren't going well, you can move them. You're probably going to have to soak up some salary if that's ever the case. And maybe in the last 2 years of this deal, if who knows what's going on in the Avalanche in 6 or 7 years from now. But the Avs have that option, and so does he have that option. If it's just not working out anymore, we can say, hey, we had a great run and we can move you to benefit both of us. Yeah. So the Avs have that, and he has that in their pockets. I think everybody here is happy with this deal.
Oh yeah.
6.125 is the AAV on that. There's just another, he's so important, and everybody's always wanting to guess what the Avs lines are for next year. Yeah. And I'm just not doing that. I genuinely don't care, because we always talk about how Jared Bednar just moves these guys all over the place. That's going to happen next year. Mm-hmm. Sure. Towards the end of the year, Nichushkin was on that top line. Yep. I don't think that's just going to be the norm for next year. He likes moving guys up and down. And while everybody's wanting to put in, this is the lines for next year, I'm like, okay, good, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. But I'm going to have, here's my 1 through 4 lines for this game, 1 through 4 lines for this game, because you can move him around. He's so versatile. He's perfect for this team.
And we still have camp coming up. Do not forget, you'll have names come through camp that you did not even have on your radar.
True. The other one, Arturi Lehkonen, you knew he was going to get signed. He was a restricted. So he gets 5 years, $4.5 million. That is a great deal. This guy, I cannot wait to see what he does for the next 5 years. Love watching this guy play.
Might just be my next jersey purchase because of his contributions last year. If we get just a glimmer of that right out of the gate, my debit card is going to explode.
He was I did get one with him with
that's right.
with the patch, with the Stanley Cup patch. So he was my purchase. Yeah. He is. He's another guy that is perfect for this team. And the two guys, you have Nichushkin, who is so good on the forecheck, and Lehkonen is almost like a mini Val. Yeah. He does almost the same thing. So you have them on separate lines doing the same thing. It's a nightmare for your opponent. Yep. Nightmare. Love it. And then another big one was Josh Manson. The same AAV as Lehkonen, 4.5, but 1 less year. So he gets a 4-year deal. And this is why, you can't just go on what's being said out there. There's so much information going on in the world right now, especially with social media, just people putting stuff up. And I get that, but you heard over and over and over again, he wants to go back to Anaheim. And maybe he did. Maybe there was some part of him that did, if things didn't work out with Colorado Avalanche. Things worked out with Colorado Avalanche, and he was clearly happy being here. He won a cup. He knows this team is still going to be good. Does he want to go back to Anaheim? Maybe he's happy playing in Anaheim because he's from there. I don't know where he's from. who knows? But you get all of this. I don't want to say false information, but it's just put out there as like law. It's like he's going back, and the Avs step in and get a deal done for a huge piece of this defensive puzzle. I was a little bit shocked that he didn't come back. I will say that I didn't think it was set in stone that he was going to go back to Anaheim. I thought he was just going to go somewhere else. Somewhere else was going to give him like a pretty good deal. He clearly wanted to stay here. So great signing. I think this one is.
Yeah, the contributions to the level of Lehkonen, but on the defensive side, like Manson came in, plugged in, was a really integral piece of the playoffs. Like this team bonded around him, and his skill, his physicality, and his hockey IQ is exactly what you needed. And another great commitment going forward. So it's one little thing that you don't have to worry about going forward.
Love it. Three great signings. And then did some other signings here and there. You know, they got the Cogliano. We talked about that, and the Helm done. You know, big move, like great moves for this team. But those 3 deals to get done early in free agency.
And all of them, none of them you have to justify. Like they were all very team friendly deals, every one of them.
Yeah. I think they maybe overpaid a little bit for Nichushkin, not by much. I would have been, my max on him was 6, and it's 6.125. Okay. I'm not going to get up in arms about that. The term surprised me, but to have the, you know, the like we said earlier about the option to move him if that situation calls for itself down the road. You can talk about that down the road. Right now, everything is good for the Avs.
Yeah.
There were players who moved on, and 2 of them in particular. You know, you had Darcy Kemper. He went to Washington, play for the Capitals, and then you had Andrei Burakovsky going to the Northwest to play for the Seattle Kraken. The Kemper deal, like I was really interested to see what his deal was going to be, because I wanted to know what the Avalanche said no to. I wanted to know like what was too much for them. And I'm going to bring it up real quick, but I think it was like 5.2, 5.3. I don't know, man. Like I was a little surprised that it was that low. I'm going to say it was 5.25.
We were just talking about how tight the cap is now. Could you imagine with a Darcy Kemper contract on there, what you would have to that's the reason it's no. That's why we're gambling on the tandem we have in goal now. Like if you thought, wow, 5.2, 5.3, can't we do that for Darcy? But then you look like we're having to trade members now. We're having to figure out if it's JT or Sammy G if we want to bring back Nas, and we still have 2 players to sign.
But what if you don't bring back Nas? I know all the reason they said they had this plan that they want, you know, Nazem Kadri was more important to bring back than Darcy Kemper. And what if the deal falls through? What if they can't make a move? I'm sure there's some team out there that would take either JT Compher or Sam Girard. I'm sure they can get a deal done. Let's just play the what if game. And the what if is it doesn't get done. Now you told Darcy Kemper no for something you had to take a chance on, and that chance doesn't pan out. You can't go back and kick yourself. You can't say like you can't, you know, hindsight's 20/20. You can't do that. But there will be some like, man, like, okay, like we could have kept Darcy Kemper for that number, and we took the chance and we lost on it.
I don't think, and this isn't like, I'm not trying to kick dirt on Darcy or nothing, but I don't think there's ever going to be a moment where you're regretting letting him go, because I feel like
there will be
like I feel like he's going to have like a Grubauer type like awakening, because the defense in Washington is not to the caliber that he's experienced in Colorado, and Darcy's going to have a hard time adjusting to that. And it's the same reason for Grubauer. It's not like we're calling out the quality of goalie, it's the quality of defense in front of him. And that, I mean, it bailed him out many times. So the people that always had the narrative, Darcy Kemper is not the goalie we need, you go out and buy the goalie you need. At the trade deadline, you trade the pieces instead of for Nas, get a goalie.
Yeah. But I think people are really forgetting Darcy Kemper had a great regular season. He He really did. And I think a lot of people want to say, oh, it's solely because of the defense. No, it's not. Like, sure, the defense plays a part. Darcy Kemper, go look at his stats. He had a great regular season, a really great regular season, and he just fell apart in the postseason. And that's the lasting memory, and that's the, you know, the last taste on their tongue, and that's what they're going to focus on. I get that, but it's unfair because he was great in the regular season.
And because I'm just the way I'm geared, I've watched the Stanley Cup final game that we won to win it all, probably the 7th time today, even before recording. And boy, when Darcy gets beat, they are so bad.
Yeah,
like in the playoffs when it fell apart, like those beats were just so bad. And like I feel like we're going to excuse those from Frankie and Georgiev for at least 20 games because they're still figuring it out. They're still figuring it out. But like that was like at the end of the season, all the way through the Stanley Cup, and those were just bad beats. So the goalie position is going to be number one question mark. Get your popcorn. Let's all argue about it. But I don't know if we're going to have that moment where like, man, we should have kept Darcy. I don't know if we will. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm telling you, if Georgiev is not panning out in like the first week, people are going to be saying, why didn't we? I'm telling you, Georgiev needs to have shutouts in his first 4 games, or people are going to be like, why the hell did we get rid of Darcy Kemper?
If he could keep his skates and his mask on, I think he's already won.
And I'm not saying that's fair to him because, you know, it's a full hockey season. Guys take some time to get into a rhythm, and I hope he does. But if he starts off poor, people are going to be like, this is looking bad, but unfair as that may be. And I will say, like, if they do bring back Nazem Kadri, then I agree with all of these moves. I do. I agree with letting him go because you wouldn't have been able to sign him. That even though it's 5.25 or something. Yeah. They just couldn't afford it. And that goes for Andre Burakovsky. He goes to Seattle for 4 years, I think. 5 years. 5 years.
Grubauer, Berkey, and Donskoy all together again.
5 years, 5.5. Avs were not going to touch that. So I think this is a good move for Andre Burakovsky. He can go to a place where, you know, they're obviously building. I think they had a really good draft, but you know, that's not gonna turn the dial next year. You know, he's there for 5 years, and I think by the end of those 5 years is when you'll start seeing the Kraken start to make some noise in the league, and he can be a part of that. But right now he can go there. He can sail his shots wherever he wants to sail them, and people aren't going to get on him like they will in Colorado. Because, you know, when you miss those shots in an Avalanche game, those are like, you need those because this team is expected to win. In Seattle, it's like, okay, like we'll deal with, you know, your up and down roller coaster ride of a season because that's what we are right now. So I think that was a pretty good move for Burakovsky.
You know, I think Berkey might actually have some of the best seasons of his life in Seattle because he doesn't have Nathan MacKinnon and that pressure of like, we have to win now. Like, we have to keep getting better. I think that started to get to him just a little bit of that constant build and the intensity from front office and Nathan MacKinnon and Landeskog. Like, I feel like going to Seattle, a change of environment, a team that wants you, like, I feel like that could be really good for Berkey. Maybe he can find some consistency, and maybe he is the player that we regret in a couple years letting go.
Well, I will say this. I think there's going to be parts of the Avalanche team that are going to be tough to replace him. You know what I mean? Like, he did a lot of good things for this Avalanche team. So for right off the bat, I mean, you know, 61 points is a good season.
Yeah.
You know, and is there anybody that you can point to right now that's on the Avs to say like he's going to be the replacement and do that and put up those kind of numbers? I don't know. I don't know if you have that guy right now. Maybe in a couple of years, someone like Alex Newhook could do that and come close to it. But I think, you know, you can't pay that much for him. You knew he was going to move on, and it was, you know, it was one of those things like it was fun while it lasted.
I'm definitely not paying $5 million for Colorado Burakovsky, but in 5 more years, I might pay $5 million for Seattle Burakovsky. It depends on what he can learn and how his game changes with a little bit of a fresher scene and a different mindset.
Because he'll be 32 at the end of that contract. So yeah, maybe that's a 5-year deal that you can watch what he does, and yeah, maybe who knows where he is at the end. I like that.
We brought back Soderbergh.
That didn't go so well. So yeah. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap it up. We will be back tomorrow. We got a couple grades that we had when we were off that we're going to get to, and maybe a Kadri deal. I don't know. I feel like Sunday, we just want to take Sunday off, and Monday we get back to work. So maybe something gets done for Nazem Kadri. If it does, we will be discussing that. So thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. And go check us out on our socials and connect with us. Enjoy the YouTube comments. Those are always fun. And yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.